Everybody, welcome to another episode of Mortgage Fundamentals Podcast. I am your host and subject matter expert, Daniel Mosqueda, here in Las Vegas. And today I brought back Rachel Gaston.
Well,
What's
hello,
up, Rachel?
hello.
How are you?
I'm doing well. I like how I answered that before you even asked. I'm doing well, thank you.
I'm glad you're doing well. How was your new year?
It was good. How was yours?
It was amazing. We
Was
had
it
a good
eventful?
time. It was very eventful. We had some friends over, just had a good time.
Yeah.
Very much still cleaning up from New Year's. I'm finding confetti everywhere in my house.
Oh, gosh. Yeah, see, I'm glad I didn't. I just went to people's houses. I didn't.
That's the best part.
Yeah,
Hosting
I went to
sucks.
a bar. Never mind. But I didn't want to host it, so.
Hosting, I will say, I've seen something before. Hosting is one of those things that unless you've done it before, people don't really appreciate or understand what kind of work goes into it.
It's a lot of
But
work.
the prep and the cleanup, especially for a New Year's party, is...
Oh, my gosh. Yeah, because you said, all the confetti, all the things. It's just, it's a lot. So, bravo to you.
Yeah.
I took the easy way out. But I was back in the Midwest, so.
Yeah, you can't really host anything if you don't live there anymore.
No, exactly. Midwest meets Vegas,
Yeah.
So.
See, tagline.
Yeah.
You got it. But again, if you want to introduce everybody yourself again, you're more than welcome to.
I was opening. Do you see what I did there?
Oh, you did it?
Yeah, you see what I did there? Yeah, so this is Midwest Meets Vegas on Instagram. Ironically, I am from the Midwest, and I moved to Vegas. So I think that's a good talk of discussion, good topic of discussion for today, considering what we're talking about. What are we talking about today, Daniel?
Oh, we're talking about relocation, Rachel.
See how I slid that in there?
You are the queen of segues today.
I tell you what.
You are doing so good. But yeah, today's topic is going to be about relocation. I brought Rachel today because Rachel's team and Rachel herself are very much involved in promoting and working with a lot of relocation clients.
Yes.
So I figured who better than to have Rachel here to talk about this topic.
Well, and I appreciate that. And I want to say, most people in Vegas are relocation. There's, I think it's almost one of those things where you see someone that's been here, born and raised in Vegas. It's like, whoa, wait a minute here. Even you came from California.
Yeah. So my relocation was a little bit different. I wasn't purchasing a house, but for those people that need to buy and transfer, it's probably one of the harder things to juggle when it comes to purchasing a home, because there's a lot of things you have to have prepared and, getting everything ready. You have to have a place to live, right? So,
Well, especially too, even if you're, a lot of times, I'll say this, I think it's 50-50 is where either someone was already renting in a different state and then the transition here, that's a lot. But when you're selling your home.
Oh, yeah.
And then moving to a different state, that can be don't mind me. That can be a lot of stress. I think there's some stress factors with that. So one thing that I pride myself in, and I know my team does as well, is that we really want to take that pressure off of you. And so I'm really excited about talking about some of the, well, I think it's a beneficial, using me and Daniel over here, but talking about the good, the bad, and the ugly. Which we talk about a lot, right?
Yeah.
There's always going to be good, bad, ugly. And I think a lot of people are just like, oh my gosh, it's going to be amazing and all of these things. But there are some things that happen on the sidelines in the back that can be stressful.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Especially when you're moving from a different state. I think from the real estate point of view, it's a little bit different. It's similar, but it's a little bit different. And it's very fun, I would say, on the lending side, especially when coming from renting to buying might not be as hard. It still has its, what's the word I'm looking for? It's challenges. It has its challenges.
Everything has its challenges.
But having to do a sale to purchase another property, those come with their own challenges. It can be a little bit more difficult. Maybe even if you're keeping that house out there, it has its own challenges, right?
Well, right. Because are you going to rent it out? Are you just going to keep it as a vacation home? What is your overall end goal? I think, and that varies. Every client's different, right? So it just, it varies on what you want to do and what makes sense for you. That's the key point. But I know we work with a lot of relocations, and I know that we strive to just make it easy. I think we talked about this last round, which like my 2 C's, my comfortable and confident.
Yeah. I always forget what it was. I had comfortable and confident.
Yeah.
I had Rick, one of my buddies, on here, and I was like, she told me 2 C's and I couldn't figure out what they were.
Yeah, don't be giving those out to other people. Those are my 2 C's. The 2 C's, comfortable and confident.
Yeah.
But it sticks in your head, which we'll get there with you. I guess we only talked about it once, so it will start sticking.
Yeah,
but
we'll make sure they have a better understanding, or at least
I think
don't forget this time, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk about this. So for your side of things, what would be, let's say someone's moving to Vegas, right?
Yeah.
I think I'm going to know the answer to this, but I want to hear it from your side of things. I've had clients that don't necessarily want to go ahead and get pre-approved prior to getting out here. And let's say
wild. I would never believe a client would say they want to do that beforehand.
I know, right? Well, now let's talk timelines though. Because I mean, there are some clients that are like, hey, I'm moving here in 3 months, 6 months, a year. So in regards to that, and most of the time I tell them, hey, let's go ahead and just get you set up with Daniel, just to figure out where you need to be at for that timeline. What do you think?
All right. So if we're going to talk about the different timelines, let's talk about them like kind of separately. So like if somebody's a year out, right? If they're a year out, there's probably an unlikely scenario where they already know what job they're going to have or have something secured. Very unlikely. It's possible, but very unlikely. The reason I would say to do like the whole pre-approval thing beforehand or start doing it then is, like you said, get set up. But it's mostly to do that checkup to make sure, hey, where's your credit look like right now? Maybe we need to fix that. Maybe you have some debts that might need to be addressed beforehand in order to qualify for the amount you want to qualify for. I might also be able to tell you, okay, if you want to move here, maybe in a year, I don't know what home prices are going to be. I don't know what interest rates are going to be.
Right.
But if this is the price range you're looking for, you're going to need to make probably about this much. So if you're considering a career change, make sure that career change includes you making this amount, right? If it's a similar job or something you're just going to be transferring possibly, and you already know what you're going to make, then we just got to figure out if that's going to be enough, or does that pay more here? Because the other thing about moving jobs, if you're doing the same job, is they might pay you less or more in a specific state.
Well, that's a good point, right? Yeah.
So that's one of the key things we want to kind of talk on. 6 months, you're getting pretty close to moving out here. So you might really want to start at least getting pre-approved. Not necessarily looking right away, but you could at least start getting an idea of what areas you're going to be in, right? You might have an idea of what kind of job you're going to have and how much you're going to pay, so get paid. So that might be one of the ways where you're kind of really close and you're in that fence where it's probably a better idea to start figuring out what areas you might want to start looking in. Right?
That's true. Yeah.
Right? And price
start
range.
Narrowing it down by the areas. And this is why it's good to have a good lender and a good realtor on your side, because we try to help you plan for what makes sense to you to those quote unquote 2 C's, right? Comfortable, confident.
Yeah.
So that way the transition's a little bit easier for you.
Literally.
Yeah. Seriously. Yeah. So, and then what about like the 3 month range?
3 months, you should already be pre-approved at that point.
Okay. That's what I wanted to hear. Because I've had some people that are like, I don't want to do it. Let me just get out there. But then I think that can sometimes be a challenge, because then what happens if
tight timelines?
Well, timelines. Yeah. Because for instance, out in Vegas, 30-day close. I mean, sometimes that can vary, but for the most part, you have to think a 30-day close. If you're going to be out here in 3 months, we need to be looking at homes. We need to get your foot in the door. I mean,
placing
right
offers.
Now, right. And we're starting to see the interest rates lower and all I mean, it always depends on what market you're in, right? But we'll just say for right now, I'm starting to notice that we are getting multiple offers again on properties because we are seeing some fluctuation, right? Beneficial fluctuation, I will say.
Yeah.
I think for seller and buyer, because we're seeing more movement. But that means 3 month timeline. We got to be on it.
Yeah.
Looking at homes, pre-approved. So that way, when you find that house that you really want to move forward with, you're already ready to go. Because the other thing is too, let's say you're thinking, oh, I want to be at that $300,000 price point. Maybe, Daniel gets you up to like 4 or 5 that you didn't even realize was an option, or the opposite.
Yeah.
And we want to make sure that you're at a good place, because that can be so frustrating.
Yeah.
When you think you're pre-approved for this, or you have this like idea in your mind that this is where you're going to be at, and you're not there.
Yeah. Well, also the other thing on being the 3-month period is, and I know we're talking about each other's markets at this point, but like the timeline in terms of like people don't find homes. Like no one goes out there. Very rarely does somebody go out there, get pre-approved, and then a week or even 2 weeks later get into a house most of the time, right? Some people, especially at the beginning,
sparingly, and that's very like, whoa, I can't believe
you
that
know
happened.
what you're looking for already, kind of situation.
Right.
But if you don't, I'm going to tell you this about buyers and being a first-time home buyer at some point in my life, even second or third home, you are out there and you don't realize how. Some people don't realize how picky they could be sometimes when it comes to picking a home, and they start judging, criticizing
the cosmetical features. Yeah, we'll go with that. Yeah, that's
a lot of things. Or the other thing is maybe they qualify for a little bit less, or didn't realize that maybe this price point isn't going to get them everything they want right away. Right. So then they're starting to have to rethink or come to the realization or the reality of the fact that this price point can get me this. So I got to find the one that's going to get me the most that I can with this, or maybe find some goose egg where I'm like the luckiest person in the whole wide world.
And sometimes it happens, but it's normally the first rather than the second. Yeah. And then you can kind of vary like, okay, maybe you thought this was going to be like your 10-year home. Okay, now looking at the price point, maybe this is going to be like 1 to 2 year home. Let me get established where I'm at, where you're at, you know, Centennial Hills, Summerlin, Henderson, using Vegas, right? And then you're like, you know what? I don't want to live in this part of town. I want to live on the complete opposite side of town, and I'm more established at my job. I got a raise, all of the things, or I switched a job and I got more, and now, I want to upgrade my home. Yeah. So that is one thing I think that I've noticed with you too. I think both of our sides we're pretty good about telling people, hey, why don't we look at the bigger picture here rather than just this little tiny idea. Yeah, like niche idea, however you want to look at it. Because in the overall bigger picture, most of the time your first home it's not your forever home.
Not for everybody.
No, and that's why I brought up the 5-10 year mark, because that happens a lot with my clients. They're like, oh, I thought this was gonna be my 5-10 year home, and you know what? I bought this from you like 2 years ago. I want to go ahead and list and I want to move. Yeah. That happens so often. Yeah. So I think when you look at it in that perspective of things, it can kind of change what you're looking at, especially. So going back to the relocation, right? Looking at that smaller timeline. Now, obviously, if you're like a year out, you're going to have plenty of time. You're going to have plenty of time.
But the other thing I want to add to the 3-month part is like, you got to look at it this way. If you're moving from LA to Las Vegas, it might be a little bit easier to accommodate times for you to sit down with them, right? So you'd probably be able to come down every weekend to look at homes. But what if you're relocating from like the East Coast or the Midwest? Right. How often are you going to have time? You're going to have to do virtual tours, right? But what if you're not one of those people that want to do virtual tours? What if you really want to come down? You're either going to have one weekend to look at stuff, and rush it, or you're going to have to plan it out to come out once a month. You know what I mean? To find things you like. Maybe the virtual tours are just going to have to work at some point, but relocation is one of those things that you as an agent have to balance out in a sense and make sure that it works for the client.
Well, and I think you and I, right? Lender, realtor, having that connection with our clients, we really have to look at what makes sense for them. Because I mean, there have been times, and I know you've seen it as well, where someone's relocating with that small time frame and they come out and look at properties. We cannot find them anything. And at that point in time, this is what we were talking about before, right? The good, the bad, and the ugly. Sometimes it doesn't work out the way you want it to. And that is okay. That is okay. Sometimes you do have to rent, maybe do like month to month, or do like a 6-month lease, a year lease, but maybe that will get you, well, you'll start figuring out the area more, right? That's the main thing. Yep. So like for my side of things, I'm like, okay, this is going to give you a better understanding of where you're living.
Yeah, the city, especially if you've never lived here.
Yes, because you're not really having that time frame to kind of explore it on your own before coming here.
Yeah.
Then you also get to decide on, okay, what do I want in a house? You get a little bit more time for that. And then also financially, you can, from your side of things, right, you can really kind of figure out, all right, this is where I'm going to be. This is what I'm looking at. You just have a little bit more time to figure things out.
Yeah.
So sometimes the good, the bad, and the ugly is, okay, great. We found a house. We found that wild, golden goose egg.
Mm-hmm.
That happens very sparingly.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times what happens is you have to kind of pick and choose what can you really live with or live without.
Mm-hmm. The needs and your wants.
The needs and your wants,
yep.
right? And then the worst case scenario, which it's not the worst, but I mean, sometimes it happens to where you wanted to buy a house. It's not making sense right now.
Yeah.
Let's just go ahead. Let's give you maybe do the month, 6-month, year lease, do something that makes sense for you to where we can get you to where you really want to be, which is owning a home. So,
well, there's also the aspect of like, we're talking about the 3-month, 6-month situation, but sometimes like what you said earlier is like, sometimes it doesn't make sense for you to do it right away when you're moving here. Yeah. Like our job, or at least our goal, is to try to get you into a home right away if it's possible. Absolutely. But from like a lender aspect or point of view, sometimes it's going to be a little bit more difficult to actually get you into a home right away, depending on your job type.
Right.
Depending on whether or not you were able to find a job on time in order to get over here. The other thing is, and I was going to say this is kind of part for you guys, is if you did find a job out here and you're unable to find a home within a reasonable proximity to your job, that could probably be a deal breaker for you as well, because sometimes, traffic hours and stuff like that could be a pain in the butt.
Which I will say, traffic isn't that bad out in Vegas.
No, it's not.
It was worse in St. Louis, ironically, but just had to throw that out there. I was like, well, yes, but
this
yes,
is
I
no
totally
Los
get
Angeles
it. Yes,
yet, and this is no Hawaii.
No,
yet.
Again, St. Louis, Midwest. If you know St. Louis, Chicago and all that, but yeah, I would say Chicago and St. Louis traffic is actually worse than Vegas. Ironically,
is it?
Yeah. Yes.
Smaller streets?
No, bigger highways.
Oh.
It's awful. You would think when I moved out here, I was like, man, this is nice. Total side note.
Oh my god.
Anyways.
Well, yeah. In Vegas, for the most part, you could probably get from one end of the other town to the other end of town on a traffic day about an hour, which is actually reasonable.
Well, maybe grandma foot over there.
I mean, traffic hours, like peak traffic hours.
Oh, shit. Okay, yeah, that's fair. That's fair. I would say 45 to an hour. Yeah.
Yeah.
Depending on which way you go, I think.
Depends on how heavy your foot is. But on a reasonable day, you could probably get from one end of the town on the other, maybe 25, 30 minutes.
Yes,
on
absolutely.
A regular one. So the traffic really isn't tacking on that much traffic. But I also digress on this. I know. But yeah, relocation is, I'm going to tell you this, relocation is going to be one of those things you definitely want to work with a group of people that are actually educated in it, have done it, and have some experience with it, because and I'll tell you guys, from the lending aspect of it, it is probably going to be one of the easier things, or loans that can go sideways if you're not doing everything you need to properly when it comes to the guidelines, income calculations, what the underwriters are going to actually take in terms of income. I will say this. If you're moving out here, I'm going to tell you the two easiest ways, or the two easiest loans that are probably going to be the easiest to kind of approve. It's going to be ones that have someone who's getting paid salary.
Okay.
That's usually the easiest loan, because it's the easiest way to calculate income. We know what you're going to make a year. It's flat, simple, right?
Perfect. Okay.
Maybe if you're working full time and your job is saying this is what you're going to get paid, you're going to work 40 hours a week, especially in a letter, and your first week paycheck shows that. Easy. Okay. The ones that are going to be a little bit more complicated will be people that are like maybe doing payment changes. They're going from like a full-time salary job to a commission-based job, or something that has some sort of variable income. Okay. Now, is it possible? I mean, we'd have to look at the whole scenario in order to figure that out. But, I'm just saying those might
be a little bit more challenging.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so this is one that I've had a lot, and this good, bad, ugly, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just moving out here on a whim without a job.
Rent first.
Rent first.
Yeah, the thing about loans, and I think some people don't realize is that you need a secure job. Just because you say you're going to do something, this is not 2007, 2008. I'm going to do this, or this is how much I'm making. We have to document everything. We have to have proof for everything, right? So in order for that transition to really work, you have to make sure that we can see that you're going to have the ability, and I'm going to use this phrase a lot throughout this podcast, but it's the ability to repay this, or ability to actually pay this loan and your other debts without really putting you in a situation where you're just going to drown in.
I like that. Yeah, not to drown. We don't want you to drown. We want you to float. And that is one thing on the realtor side of things too. I've had a lot of people that it's gotten brought up to me, I guess, more than once. And
what is that, Rachel?
Just moving out here kind of on like a dream.
Oh yeah.
And I love that. I want you to, live out your dreams, but the good, the bad, the ugly.
Yeah.
And sometimes you have to hear some of the ugly truth, which is you can do whatever you want, but I think it definitely helps relocating to have a job. And not even with purchasing a home, but even with rentals nowadays. And I definitely say after COVID, I noticed that the restrictions for even getting a rental sometimes, there's some tight restrictions because they want to see that you can afford the rent.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially when we seen one of our worst kind of economies at that point. I mean, the economy kind of rebounded pretty good because of all the stimulus and everything that was going on. But I will say this. I think I just want to talk on a couple of things. So for the lending side, I'll say this. If you're going to move out here, make sure you have the funds that you're going to need for it, right? For everything, especially the moving part, because moving is costly, especially cross country. Make sure you have a job lined up. Make sure that you already have like a hire date, you have a contract, you have all of that set up, right? Make sure your credit's pretty decent. And just make sure you have all your ducks lined up in a row, especially if you're going to be doing a home loan. You know what I mean? And don't start putting things away or getting things too messy, because throughout the whole process, we're going to be asking for things that we're going to need from you. You know what I mean? I know a lot of things are digital, but you still want to make sure that, you have access to certain things, especially important like financial documentation when we're doing that home loan. Yeah. Right.
Well, and I think we talked about this last time too. The documentation that's needed to get the loan, it might seem like a lot, and it might seem like, oh my gosh, I can't believe it. They're asking for this, they're asking for that. But that's just protection for you, just to make sure that you can really, move forward comfortably. And confidently, that you're not overwhelmed with like a loan that really just doesn't make sense for your life.
Yeah.
To where you can't live life. You're just stuck in this house and that's all you can do. So that's, I think, a great
Unless your house can do everything.
Yeah, unless your house can do everything. You don't want to leave the house and all the things. Look, that might work out for you. That's great. Then, but most people still want to go on vacation or just live a little,
Yeah, especially if you're in Vegas. I mean, I will say this maybe about Vegas. I know some people are moving out here. Maybe they are just doing it for the family reasons. But if you're a younger person, maybe you're coming out here and you still want to have some access to the strip, whether that's downtown or a regular strip area. Personally, I think I moved here when I was 27. I didn't go to the strip very much.
I think I moved here when I was 27 too, actually.
Yeah, I didn't go out very much to the strip. I just always kind of stayed away. When I moved out here, it's different than visiting out here. Just FYI.
It's funny. I'm starting to laugh about that. I'm like, you don't really go to the strip that much.
No.
And I'll use like St. Louis as an example. Like I always tell people back home, they're like, oh, you live in Vegas, you go to the strip all the time. I'm like, the best way I can describe it is this. I'm like, do you go to the Arch all the time?
Yeah.
And then they're like, oh. Vegas is a city. There's so many things to do in all these communities that we have that you just don't really go to the strip. It's so much fun. Don't get me wrong. It's still a good time to like, I love people watching and all the things. And I mean, that's one good thing to have that you can go do it if you want, but you don't normally go.
Yeah, especially if they're opening new things. Like when they opened Area 15, I've been there a few times to visit
Area 15 is so cool.
Fontainebleau, whatever you want to call that place. I went down there recently just to go check that out.
They have the Lost Distillery.
Oh, that's inside the Area 15, right?
Yes, it's on the outs. It's like on the side.
Yes.
Oh my goodness. It was so cool. It was really cool.
I think I seen it and I think I wanted to go check it out. I forgot why we
highly
were there.
recommend.
We were there for access. So we were there for a friend's birthday. See, the only reason you go down there is like if you're going for an event too. In fact, we're actually...
Or like people in town.
If people are in town, your family.
Yeah.
I usually try to hide them for my family that's on the strip when they get here because I don't want to go.
Yeah.
But I think we're going to be going to the strip actually to later tonight. Today is... No, you don't ever really go. I'm just going to say...
I'm going tonight. You don't ever go to the strip, but I'm also going tonight.
It's ironic. Not because I want to go, but one of our friends invited us to go somewhere. And
your friend's gonna watch this and be like, Dang,
They live here. They live here. They got tickets.
He doesn't really want to go, but he has to.
Look, I hope they don't listen to this, but I didn't want to go, but I felt coerced into doing it. Okay. But she does live here as well, so we're gonna go to this. That said, you only go down there like if there's like new things kind of going on. Maybe there is only an attraction out there you can go see, like the shows. When our family was in town recently, we actually went down to go see like the Love Show, the Beatles.
It was good.
Cirque du
That was
Soleil
good.
one.
Yeah, the shows are fun.
Yeah, what's the one at the Wynn?
I have no idea.
That
the
one's
O
really
one?
good.
No, that's the.
It's another one of the
Cirque du Soleil.
Yeah, it was really good. That one was my favorite one so far.
Yeah, I love all. That's like one of my things.
I fell asleep at one of them though. I fell asleep at the one that's the French one.
Okay. Never mind. All right, Daniel.
So they're not all my favorites, but the shows are great. Sorry.
They're mine, but all right. Okay. So the relocation.
That's my personal review.
Yeah.
Okay. But yeah. If you're coming down here, just know that you're probably each individual person is going to want to be in a different part of Las Vegas, depending on their age, their demographic, and what they want to do.
That is a way. That was a good way to end that one. That was good. Yeah. Well, relocation to Vegas, man. I think you really sold them on Vegas. So there's a lot of hiking. You can go to you could go.
There's multiple areas to hike here.
Right, totally. And then like one day you could like ski, and I always joke around about this with Vegas. It's like one day you could be skiing, and then the next day you could be like kayaking. Yeah. On the river or like the lake. Yeah. You know.
And then the next day you can go out with your friends and get drunk.
Yeah, and go with Daniel down to the strip because he clearly can't say no.
Peer pressure, guys. Just tell you guys, social lives. I'm gonna tell you this. At my age, social lives are a lot more taxing than they were when I was younger.
Yeah, I feel that. I think. Well, earlier today you were like, "Man, it sounds like you had a rough night out." I was like, "I was business planning till 11 p.m. and past the bedtime." Oh my man, I sound so lame. But. So one good thing is, I know for you and for me, we do love our jobs, that's for sure. And we will be working till, I can't say for you. I prefer not to get the calls at 11 p.m. But that's sometimes, so that's actually a good point with relocation. Well, because I feel like,
the difference in time zones and
then military, right? I know I have, and I know you have as well. Like sometimes you're coming from even like foreign countries, like different and I'll just use military as an example right now because I brought up like bases and all the things. So that helps having a good realtor and a lender that knows that life happens, relocation, you might not be coming from the same time zone. Yeah. So having that clarity and knowing that someone's going to be there for you to help you through that, even if it is later in the day. And I'm speaking for you on this, but I know I
stay up pretty late.
You stay up pretty late, so I'm just going to go in and say it. So keep that in mind.
If I don't want to answer, I won't answer. If it's too late or it's too early. But
right. And then but you're good about calling back right away, absolutely. Too. So, I mean, we do sleep, but, I mean, normally we can kind of schedule that
I put out there that I probably don't with the
way. Yeah, I was going to say, I'm like, it sounds like, look, man, I said 11 p.m. was past my bedtime. I will make it work for you, but.
Yeah. But we also live in a 24-hour city, and life does happen. People have different jobs, different careers, and we try to accommodate for that. Yeah,
right. We have a lot of people that maybe move here to work in the entertainment industry, and
even if you're a housekeeper or anything, if you work in the casinos, you have your morning shifts, midday shifts, swing shifts, overnight shifts.
That's true. I had a client that was worked in that field and it was night, and so we just kind of made it work for them.
Oh, late at night or early mornings are probably better, right when they wake up.
Yeah, so it would be like really early or like really late, and it was okay. I get it. It was mainly just what made sense for the client. So now I will say this, I kind of going off topic, same topic, but
because we didn't go on a tangent recently.
We did, and I that was fun though. I know now that I can definitely talk you into going on this trip with me because you'll feel guilty. But what I was going to say is having the two C's. I think this is really important because I've had this brought up a few times. Is when somebody's moving, don't if you're already thinking, oh my gosh, I want to use Rachel, I want to use Daniel. You're like, I don't have a realtor to help me out with. I'm going on the realtor side. Sorry,
you're good.
To help me out in, I don't know, Florida, Massachusetts, wherever you're located. We work with like myself and my team. We work with a lot of other realtors in different locations. So I have helped clients either moving here or leaving here.
Yep.
And that's another thing too to keep in mind too, because
we do the same thing with our lenders. Like if you're leaving from here to somewhere else, we have a network of agents, lenders that we work with when it comes to getting you pre-approved now. Right. And the great thing is that they're within the same company. So the guidelines are going to be a lot easier to deal with. I already know what we're going to need. You know what I mean? The communication is going to be a lot easier because it's internal.
Yes, I think that's why I wanted to bring this up, because I know coming here, leaving here, that's going to be relocation regardless. So just having that communication through the states can be extremely helpful on your side, and it just makes the process go so much smoother.
Streamlined, less people to talk to. You know what I mean? When you're doing relocation, like that's a key thing right there, right? Yeah. If you have an agent out there, you have that agent. If you have the agent out here, that's this agent. Right. Now you have your lender here, right? So you're talking to three people, but sometimes there's additional people that get involved for some reason in it that make it a little bit more
tedious.
It's just a lot of white noise because there's so many people talking. There can be contradictions depending, and especially if you're going from state to state, maybe those other people don't understand your state laws and
there are different laws, right? And then there sometimes can be some confusion with that. So that's why it's so good to have all the parties in unison with each other to get you to the closing table. Yeah. Whether it's coming here, leaving here, whatever the case is. And I mean, we've done that in the past, you know,
from California,
and then also to like the Colorado, you know, we've had a couple things like that where it makes it so much easier. And I think that's important, because I have had it happen before where I've had clients, and it happens. It does a lot, but that's why I like to bring it up. You know, if you're comfortable with Daniel and I, then you can ask us, and we'll more than likely know somebody in another state. Yeah. That's the main thing. And then someone that, you know, okay. But if you're not comfortable with them too, that's okay. Normally I feel like, I know on my side of things, and I'm sure it's probably for you too, like I try to give clients like, not just one person, but like multiple, because personalities.
Yeah. Right. No, personality is a big thing. I think so. I was recently watching a YouTube or a TikTok, Instagram, a Reel, who knows what it was. Yeah. But our industry is a couple of things. And in my opinion, I won't put them in any specific order. The first one is you want to get someone who's experienced or someone that knows what they're doing and is going to be able to work with you, because being creative in this industry is one of the key things in order to get loans closed. Creativity is key on how we work.
Oh, is that a C for you?
That's a C for me, creativity. Oh! Just added a C to our stuff. And I was talking to it in the podcast I'm going to post before this one. Guidelines kind of give us an idea, are just words, right? So it's like legal jargon, and we have to figure out how to interpret those guidelines and see if it's going to work when we talk to like an underwriter. Some people will color within the lines and only get so close to the lines. And you've worked with our team a lot. So you know we will get to the point where we're actually touching those lines. That's how creative. We try to find every single space we can use, especially when we're trying to get a loan approved or making sure a client can get into the home they want to get into. Yeah. So that's a C for Daniel, creativity. The other thing what is the other thing you want to do? The other thing is experience, right? So the experience you're going to have doing this transaction, and this is an E, I'm sorry.
I can forgive you.
It's the experience, right? The experience you're going to have with that agent is going to be key. You're going to spend a lot of time with that agent. The experience you're going to have with that lender is going to be a key thing too, because that person has to be able to make you feel comfortable, like she says, right? And confident that they're gonna be able to do it. But they also have to make sure that you're getting educated at the same time. CEE.
Yeah, CEE. See, it's gonna stick in your head, I'm telling you.
But I think those are the key things, especially like, again, I'm just always gonna go back to relocation. But I do want to ask you something.
Yes. What do you have?
What would you say are your top like 3 tips that you give to every relocation client that you have moving here?
My top 3 tips.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's funny because I think we've been bouncing off of them a little bit.
Okay.
So top 3 tips. So number 1, use me. And Daniel. That's a combo.
We come as a meal, bro.
That's number 1. Yeah. So no, it really is your choice who you use for a realtor, lender.
But use us.
Yes. Yeah. Real estate ASMR. Yes, but I think that's a key point, because the thing is, even if you're moving, if you're moving to Vegas or anywhere, it's always good to have a lender and a realtor in your back pocket, because if you find a good realtor, they're going to help you figure out what part of town might make the most sense for you. It's always going to be your choice, just like it's your choice on whoever you use. But you might have questions about the city. Now we can kind of say like, okay, so you like to hike and all the things, maybe check out this side of town. Like for me, a lot of times I tell my clients, oh, you know what, you love the outdoors, and you can really, anywhere in Vegas, you can enjoy that. But
if you want to specifically do this,
if you specifically want to do this, maybe check out this side of town. You might like the vibe of that area, or you know, you might really enjoy this. So that, I think that helps, and if having someone there to help, like be like your cheerleader in the background for this, is important. Number 2. And the reason why I bring up the lender, number 1, is for also number 2, finances. You really need to, as much as you want to get out of wherever you're at, like that's, you know, I think some people, like for me, I knew I was going to move to Vegas like years ago, but when I finally made the move, I knew I was going to join my team. I knew like, okay, this is what I'm going to do. I had my job lined up, real estate, you know, but I mean, I did have to like pre-plan that a little bit. I've seen some people really, really struggle moving here on like what we were talking about earlier, like that dream, which I love, but sometimes you need to build up to that dream, right? Like there's stepping stones with that. So the finances are key, making sure that, okay, maybe if you don't have a job moving out here right away, you have a large sum of savings. Yeah. Because you don't want to be in a position to where you end up hating where you moved. And I've told people that,
or at least portraying or saying that you hate this place, even though you just didn't properly prepare for it.
You did, exactly. Preparing is key, you know? So I think that's a big one. So, you know, again, having people, cheerleaders in your back pocket, realtor, lender, finances, big one. Ideally you have a job. Unless you're, you know, unless you're retired and you're just like, I want to live the Viva Loca, I have the money saved up. Okay, then great. Then come on. But you got to have one or the other. And that's just to have you enjoy the process more. Number 3. Ooh, this is a tough. Why is this one tough? I don't know why this just got so tough. So
then I'll make it easier for you.
Yeah,
so
what's number 3 for you?
For number 3, what do you think is like the biggest thing people don't realize that comes up to you a lot when they have to actually relocate? Like, have you had an issue that's very common that a lot of people don't realize is a part of a relocation?
Oh, that's a good point. I think just the moving process in general, which sounds so silly, but it's like doing research on things to make it easier for yourself. We can only do so much for you in terms of like, you know, the finances, helping you find a place here, and then we'll help guide you with like, you know, do you want to use U-Haul, Mayflower, what you want to use? That sounds so silly, but having a little bit of understanding to know that like, are you moving your stuff or somebody else? And now that again, that sounds so silly, but you want to have that set up.
It's so obvious too, kind of.
It is, but like you want to have, and that is actually number 3. I would say is that's a big factor for me. And then I've talked to people that I'm like, okay, so how are you moving all your stuff? And they're like, I didn't think about that. They're like, oh, I was just gonna ask you, and I'm like, well, when you get here in the middle of the night, are you moving your stuff in? or are you going to stay at a hotel? So again, that's why, going back to number one, it's good having a good realtor and, you know, all the things, because we're going to look on the back side of things and say, okay, this is so exciting. We got you set up with Daniel. You're moving here. Oh my gosh. What are you going to do when you get here at midnight with all of your stuff? So try to pre-plan that a little bit.
Yeah.
And that is something that's so simple and basic, but oh my goodness, I think it just gets pushed on like the back burner, so to speak.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like everybody's very last minute or very hesitant to think about these things. They just have this big idea about moving and then they just want to get out here.
Then sometimes, like, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but like there have been times too where pre-plan, the reason why I'm saying pre-plan on this is because there have been multiple times where my clients like, I'm just using U-Haul as an example. I'm going to use U-Haul. And none of the trucks are available. So they had to go to a different city, grab the truck, come back there. True. Yeah. So that is why I'm bringing that up. And that is, I mean, I don't know. Yeah. That's something I see quite often.
I did have some clients that I helped for a relocation up from Washington. They were a retired couple. So that was also an easier one when it comes to the lending side, is if you have retired income and there's this like fixed income. Right. It's the same thing as salary. Fixed income, easiest thing to do with relocation, right? It's very easy to really calculate that. There's not really a lot involved in trying to figure certain things out. But I was helping them out, and for them, they had certain things planned out. But for some reason, I believe we were either closing a little bit earlier. They were buying a new home, and the new home was a little bit off on their dates. And so these clients were having to figure out how they were going to get here. They had pets they were bringing with them too. Oh yeah. So they had a couple of cats and dogs that they had to bring with them. So they were just antsy and making sure that they had everything planned out properly, because they had to accommodate the dogs and the cats moving here, and they had to make sure when they got here they had somewhere to take those animals, in a sense. So again, I think planning is just in general planning, not even the finance side or anything, just making sure everything is gonna work out and is gonna work on the timeline you guys need.
I'm so glad you brought that up, because this is gonna kind of go into this what I'm about to say, and this is why, again, this is my number 3. One thing I've noticed is that because I've had it happen when I first got into real estate, and now I'm like, I really try to watch this for people. Now, if it doesn't work for your timeline, it doesn't work for your timeline. But most of the time, what I'll do is, let's say we're closing on the 27th. It's a Wednesday. I don't know. We'll just say we're closing on the 27th of the month. I'll normally tell my clients, hey, just to make sure, because sometimes life happens with closings. Lord forbid we don't close on the 27th. What are you going to do if you have all the movers at your house on the 27th at 7 a.m.? You're probably not getting the keys. I'm going to be honest here. You're not getting the keys until we fund and record. Most of the time, that doesn't happen until after 4 o'clock. Sometimes it'll happen after 3, but think evening.
Well, even in California, you fund one day and you have to close the next day.
Exactly. So what I try to do is, and I'll tell new realtors this, all the things, is always tell your clients to be prepared to not have those movers maybe on the same day. If you want to take that chance, by golly, it's Vegas. You can gamble all you want. But I think it would be better to place a safe bet and maybe have the movers come in like a day or even 2 if you can later. Because what happens if there was something that wasn't signed on the 27th and then now we're not closing until the 28th? So I normally try to pre-plan that a little bit with my clients. And then it's like, oh my gosh, you're so right. Like, what happens if we do, and I mean, I get it. Sometimes you're moving your stuff out from another house, and that's why it helps to have both realtors that you're working with from state to state on the same page. So that way everything can be coordinated for you accordingly.
Well, the other thing on top of that is, especially if you're moving from out of state, I think, now that I think about it, one of the things you really want to be prepared for is, depending on the type of home you're buying, maybe there are some things you want to get done to that house before you even move in too.
That's a good point. Because I mean, the carpets, all the things. So are you prepared to maybe keep your stuff in storage? Are you prepared to, maybe stay in an Airbnb?
Or even hopefully you have family?
Family or friends. That's a good point. A lot of times it doesn't happen like that. So I would say maybe pre-plan for like an Airbnb or like a, long stay, something.
Or is your family moving with you right away? Or are you moving out here first by yourself? I've had that happen before.
That's a good point.
You know what I mean?
Right. So
or they get out here beforehand, they're starting to work, they work and they stay with, like, not relatives, but coworkers or somebody in the same industry kind of situation.
Yes, exactly. So
those are some key tips on there.
Pre-planning.
So I'll go over a couple things for the lending side. I know that I mentioned salary and all that other stuff is probably going to be the easiest things. I think if you want to be really prepared for like relocation, how we touched on in the beginning is get ahead of that. There are last minute moments or situations that happen all the time, and we'll work with that. Best piece of advice is to get ahead of that. Make sure you know what you're going to be able to afford. Maybe even visit the city a little bit beforehand and go on the outskirts to figure it out. Maybe do like a little tour with your agents and stuff like that. Say, let's go here, let's go there. They can probably give you the pros and cons as to what's great about those areas or why those areas might be beneficial for you to move there.
Or like try to see, like maybe even so what I do with my clients is I'll say, okay, I want you to rent a car if you can, because I want you to be able to, after we look at houses, drive around and get lost a little bit, figure out, because sometimes when you get lost like that, maybe have like something set on your GPS to where you don't get completely lost. But I mean, that really does help you kind of figure out the city and driving through it. I've known, because I've relocated multiple times even before I came out to Vegas. And that was one of my biggest things was driving around, figuring out for myself, because now, if you can't, that's okay.
Some people just get lost.
Yeah, like it's okay if you don't. Like I said, maybe try to set something on your GPS. But one thing I'll do with my clients is I will try to show houses in multiple locations. Not unless they're very adamant, like, I do not want to live on this part of town. I did my research. Okay, we won't go look at that. But let's go ahead and look at like a house in here, here, and here. And that way we're driving through. So keep that in mind too. Yeah. If you're not moving to Vegas and if you need a realtor in a different location, let me know. I can help you with Rachel that. Let me know. I can help you find one. Seriously, that's serious business. Yeah.
Likewise with the lenders.
Exactly. But that helps.
Yeah, it definitely does. So the other thing I was going to add too is there are different kinds of movers, right? So there's people out here that don't own a home. So you're going to go from renting to purchasing. Right. That's going to probably be the easiest one too, as well, because we don't have anything attached back home for us to have to sell.
That's a big one.
The ones that get a little bit more complicated are probably going to be the ones that are, if you have to sell your property out there and use the equity here, there are ways to actually make that work. There's a couple ways. One of those is like a simultaneous close, right?
Yeah. Well, and there's, I think, loan programs too, depending on
bridge loans.
Yeah, depending on your situation, but that's why you talk to Daniel too.
You can do a bridge loan. I can get into more details about a bridge loan in future podcasts, but a bridge loan essentially is one of the ways to try to. We didn't do a bridge loan. I've done a bridge loan with somebody else before. A bridge loan basically is using the equity from your current property to purchase another property until your previous property gets sold, and then we use the rest of that money for the rest of the loan. It's a little bit more complicated than that,
and it doesn't work for everybody. I think it's like if you really have to like urgently move somewhere,
and you don't have a current buyer just yet, or you can even have one too still. You can actually use a bridge loan while you're on contract as well.
Good thing we're doing this podcast because Rachel just learned something.
But I will talk more about bridge loans later. The other one is some people like to keep their properties at the previous places and then rent them out. So for those, my tip for you is if you're going to be doing that and you already have a place out here you can find, if from a finance point of view, and make sure you get pre-approved and we don't have to use that loan against your income, you might want to already have that. You will want to have that rented already, and you're going to want to have a contract. And the key thing to have, besides that lease contract already signed, is you're going to have your first month and deposit already from that person deposited. Make sure it's in a check, not in cash or wired, and it has to specifically state what it's for. It has to be detailed.
There has to be a paper trail. You can't just have cash underneath your mattress.
It doesn't help. We can't track it. We don't know what it's for. It could be for anything, to be honest with you guys. So think about when you're thinking about these things, when we're asking for documentation, is it something that we're going to ask questions about? And if we are going to ask questions, is there any real way for you to prove that that's what it was for or where that money came from? Cash cannot be traced. It is very difficult to trace.
Cash is key, but also like it needs to be traceable. So keep that in mind. That's a very good point.
Yeah.
Very good point. You can't just say like Joe Smith from, the corner gave you the money.
Yeah. Joe Smith. Yeah, Joe Smith's renting out my house. He just gave me $15,000 in cash. Here it is.
I guess I could have used Billy Bob. I use Billy Bob a lot.
I just seen a funny meme that I actually just posted online. Somebody said when your real estate agent asks for proof of funds, and it was a photocopy of somebody with a bunch of cash. Just literal photocopy of cash.
I've seen that. And I'm like, oh man, I'd freak out. I'd be like, oh, man.
Sorry, sir, that doesn't work in this area.
That doesn't. Yeah.
But yeah, those are, I think, in my opinion, those are the biggest tips you're going to have from me when it comes to relocation. Obviously, there's a lot of different loan programs you can use.
Yeah.
There's going to be a lot of different guidelines, and I really don't want to get into that. But I think when it comes to relocation, it comes to the lending side, and you own another property, it's going to be very, very important to pay attention to what we're going to do. And that's another reason why to plan ahead, because then you plan that out with your lender. They're going to tell you, they should tell you, okay, this is what I'm going to need if you're going to do this. This is what I'm going to need. But don't do anything until you ask your lender. Yeah. Because if you do it wrong.
Yeah, that can cause a whole thing. And you think you're doing something right. But that's, again, going back through all of this is why I say it's good to have a lender and a realtor prior to
named Rachel and Daniel.
Exactly. Prior to moving, because everything that he just covered, that is so important, because you might say, oh, I'm going to pay off this, this, and this. You might not need to. And so you don't even need to do like a hard run on their creditors. A lot of times you can just do, all right, this is where we want you to be. This is where you want to be. This is what you got to do. And just have that communication. Communication is key. So,
cash is not key.
Cash is not key. I mean, it can be, but
it's not. Not in this industry.
Well, no, so
not unless you're buying the house cash.
Cash. I was gonna say, like, hold on. Now, for my side of things, if you want to come cash buyers, we're good.
Yeah,
we're good.
Yeah.
Make sure your cash is traceable, though, please. Like, that'd be great. That's part. Important.
What other things would I say about relocation from a lender's point? I really don't have too much about it, because it's the same process for the most part, with the exception to the key differences is that it depends on what you have tied back at home when it comes to it, right? Who's going to be the primary resident, all that other good stuff. But, you know, I think overall relocation can be a pain in the butt, but it can be easy as long as you can be easier. It could be a little smoother with the right people, right? People that have already dealt with it. And that's my take on it.
I think that's a fabulous take on it, honestly. Yeah, that was bravo, because I mean, coming from my side of things, everything you hit is more or less, now I'm not licensed to do that, but this is why we need a lender for when you relocate. And because people think I'm crazy when I say, let's get you pre-approved. Let's have you talk to the lender, even though you're not moving here in a year. Let's get you.
And just FYI though, hold on. Just FYI though, there's actually a program that just came out that even if you're relocating and you own a home somewhere else, there's a down payment assistance program here for that. Wow. No way. Doesn't have a first time home buyer stipulation. You can own a home as long as it's in a different state. So something to keep in mind when you're actually doing stuff.
Now, this not let's say maybe not relocation. Would that be good for vacation homes?
Only primary residence, ma'am.
I missed that part. Never mind.
If you're going to purchase let me rephrase that. Only if you're going to purchase a primary residence, you can use this down. I don't think any down payment assistance program will allow you to buy secondary
That's what I was like.
Property. It doesn't make any sense to give grants to somebody who's trying to invest.
Well, that's what I was wondering. I'm like, how do you stop? Okay.
How do you
stop that? But that's why you have the primary residence on there.
Okay. Don't wink at me. No, they have to live there.
I was testing him. He passed. See, and this. You were so quick. I didn't know if you could catch on. Shame. Don't do that. That was a joke. But like, you could catch on quick. See how quick
the last thing you want to do is do mortgage fraud, especially on a
Please don't. Please don't. We'll do the real estate horror. Yeah, that would be a real estate horror film. Yeah.
Shoot, I don't want to go behind bars, that's for sure.
No, don't do that. So that's actually really brilliant though, because I think that would be, I think a lot of people
take advantage of it. Yeah. And you can still keep that other house as an investment property. That's a great way to really look at it. It's because there's an opportunity for you to be able to keep that other house, make some passive income, and move to Vegas. And maybe you'll be making more off that house depending on what kind of interest rate you have on that.
That's big, especially if you're thinking about. Now, that's a good way of looking at it, right? Like, let's say you are, but that could be like maybe your first investment property, right? Is your previous primary, not the new one.
That previous one.
No winking.
She can wink on that one. Because it is going to be a previous.
Yeah, it's previous. Exactly. So that's okay. But just yes, okay. I love that though. I'm glad you brought that up. I'm glad you brought that up.
I'm glad that it came up in the topic because the program literally just came out a week ago. I think 2 weeks. It came out first, January 1st.
This was brilliant that we were going over this. It's like we planned it.
Today's January 13th. Yeah, it's the 13th of January when we're filming this. So yeah, it came out about 13 days ago.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Yeah.
And Happy New Year. Yeah. So those of you who are planning on moving to Vegas as your New Year's resolution.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah.
We're ready for you.
Yeah. Por favor, llame su preferido prestamista hipotecario aquí en Nevada, in California. Rachel does not speak Spanish.
I do not speak Spanish. I'm sorry. But I do know Spanish-speaking realtors. So if you need a Spanish-speaking realtor, contact me.
I was like, I'm not a realtor.
No, we have you as a lender. You just proved yourself. Me, I'm sorry. I can't. But I have someone for you.
Yeah. We know her. Good. We know her.
Yes. We do. It's a man.
Wait, she doesn't speak Spanish?
No, I know a gentleman.
Oh.
Realtor.
She knows a gentleman.
Gentleman realtor.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Great.
Español.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Fabulous.
Sí.
So, yeah.
No sé.
But we have options for you. You know, if you don't want to use a gentleman, we know females. So anyway, it's not the point. Because it's always your choice on who you use. Okay. So just saying. I was like, I guess you got a point. I do know others, but what's the thing about having options? I'm all like, I have one for you. No, I have multiple. I guess I just got tested and I failed, but
oh man. Anyways, guys. But that's our podcast for the relocation. Let's get through the outro here. So if you guys found this information to be helpful, please go ahead and share this podcast with your friends, families, acquaintances, coworkers, dog, cats, everybody, right? Turtle. Right. And where can they find you again, Rachel?
Midwest Meets Vegas on Instagram. I'm on LinkedIn. It's just Rachel Gaston.
She's on TikTok too, but she doesn't use it.
I don't really use that too much. I mean, you can see some interesting random videos of me and Daniel.
Oh, I'm the only one who forced you to do it.
yeah. And then I have a couple travel. I do a lot of hiking and stuff out here. So if you ever have any questions on that
with your doggy Tonto.
Yeah. One of the reasons why I relocated to Vegas.
Especially this area.
Much. Yeah.
Because there's areas for dog walking. But if you guys really enjoyed this, please like it. If you guys want to hear more, follow, subscribe, whatever channel you guys are on, go ahead and do that. You guys can always find me on my Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. I'm on LinkedIn. Don't use that. Facebook. Don't use it. But you can still contact me on there.
I guess that's a good point. I'm on all of those too. I don't use them too much, but I'm there.
But we appreciate you guys taking your time to be with us today, and I'll have Rachel on sometime in the future again. So we'll see you guys again.
He's stuck with me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now he has to.
Bye everybody.